Hi, welcome to Key Questions for Key Staffers. My name is Jim Atterholt. I'm the Vice Mayor for the town of Fort Myers Beach. And this is a show where we find key subject matter experts and we ask them about issues, particularly as they relate to post-Hurricane Ian relief and recovery. And so this is something that we have done for I think this is maybe our 16th or 17th show. And we try to get out information to the public that's helpful, and particularly as they are trying to recover from the storm and information coming from the town of Fort Myers Beach. Abraham Lincoln once said, "Let the people know the facts and the country will be saved." And this is our small attempt to do that. And so, of course, this show is pushed out on all of the town's social media platforms, but we also have our friends at Beach Talk Radio who are kind enough to play this show before their regular scheduled programming on Fridays and Saturdays. We ask our friends, other friends in the media, at the news press, the Observer, and the local TV stations, if they're working on a story that's germane to this subject matter topic, to go ahead and link it to their various websites. And we also ask our friends at home, if you see something that you think would be helpful for your friends and neighbors, to go ahead and link or post it on your Facebook page. So we've got a special guest today. He is the manager of our utilities division. And Steve, pronounce your last name for me so I don't mess it up.
Steve Matuska.
Steve Matuska. And Steve, you've been with the town for how long?
I've been with the town for about 5 weeks now.
Well, welcome. And I bet you came in and there was lots of activity.
Very busy here.
Well, the utilities division, and a lot of folks know this, we've talked about this a little bit early on after the storm. You know, the town distributes water. But we don't generate water. We get our water from the county, Lee County, and we send the bills out for the sewer, and that's all done from the county. But we basically do billing for the sewer, and we also have a stormwater system that folks have to pay a fee for to service as well. And we'll get into that in a little bit as well. But I know on the water piece in particular, and probably a lot with stormwater as well, as some of the properties have been heavily damaged. Some of them are lots right now. They're still getting bills. But I wanted to ask you, since you're managing the division, what are the most common questions and or complaints that you're getting right now? And let's walk people through what's happening in your division, particularly as it relates to what you're interfacing with the public on.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're in a really unique situation. As you said, we purchased our water through Lee County. It's a very good situation that we have here because we have a steady supply of water coming in. We don't have to retreat the water or anything like that. We basically have 2 tanks on island and one marina station at Moss Marina.
When you say tanks, you need storage tanks.
Actual ground storage tanks. We got a 500,000 gallon tank on one end of the island and a 1,000,000 gallon tank on the other end of the island.
And we do that because if you want just to have just a little bit of a reserve, so in other words, it just can't be pumped onto the island. That way, if there's a particular demand, you've got a little storage to serve the demand.
It helps out. I mean, we have a lot of resorts that are over a couple stories tall, so it helps out when demands change based on seasons. There's also a need for fire reserve there, safety issues and all of that type of stuff too.
So the reserve storage units are where then on the island?
There's one at the south end of the island off of Lenville Road, and then there's one on the north end of the island right by Times Square.
Okay.
And right across from the town parking lot there.
Okay.
So, and we also have Moss Marina, which that direct feeds the island. So we got 2 motors there.
How does it work at Moss?
So basically the water comes in under the bridge, under the main bridge coming onto the town of Fort Myers Beach, and it comes into Moss Marina. At Moss Marina there's 2 pumps. We run one at a time. Those pumps supply the water to the island, not just to the island, but also to those 2 booster stations that we're talking about. Then we can kick either one of those booster stations on and redistribute excess water on one end of the island if we need it. The marina pumps are running most of the time. In the situation since the storm right now, we actually don't have the north tank online, so the marina pumps are running constantly right now. We're able to achieve it because we don't have the demand for water that we typically have. So that's why, even though it's spring break right now and season is starting to come here to us, because we don't have the amount of households using the consumption levels that they typically use, running straight from the marina is actually functioning pretty well for the town right now and along for Lee County as well.
Very good. So in terms of people reaching out to your division with billing complaints, questions, what are you hearing most common?
Yeah, so my first day I asked, what's the biggest concerns down here that I need to address right now? And so the biggest concerns for me are really restoration of services, Obviously, we want to be able to get people water when they're ready to get back into their houses. So that's my main goal. And then our second goal is to simplify this billing process, phone call process. I understand there's been a lot of frustration throughout the town trying to get a hold of people in the utilities department, trying to get their services rectified, whether it's they want a demo check for a cut and cap, or they want a new line installed for their RV.
So go back to the first one.
Yeah.
Went fast. So they want a demo check.
Some people want a demo check if they're demoing their properties, and we're requiring them to cut their water service so that way it's not destroyed during the demolition process.
Do they do that through a plumber, or does the town do it for them?
So they have to do it with the plumber on their own. And it's really important that people do it, because what we're trying to avoid is contractors going out there, whether it's demolishing a business or a resident. I don't want people to pull up a water line, just like we don't want somebody to pull up a gas line or an electrical line. It's no different. When they pull up our water line, they disturb service in the area. Then we might have to do potential repairs to a certain area, a centralized area, maybe a whole street would have to be shut off. It depends on the situation. So
what does a plumber in essence do? Do they take out a section between the home and the street, and then they cap each end?
So what they're really doing is they're cutting off the water line on the customer side of the meter. They're usually putting a 90-degree elbow on it and bringing the pipe a couple feet above ground so you know where it's at when you need to access it. That's the smart thing to do, and I highly encourage everybody to do that. And then they're just capping off the line right there.
Okay.
So prove to us that our guys can visually go out, inspect the service, see that the line's been cut off from the house, and it's capped. So there's no way that anybody's going to hook back onto it very easily.
So if you apply for a demo permit, is that part of the permitting process?
It is part of the permitting process. And then the utilities department is following up with the inspections to make sure that these properties have been capped before the demolition actually proceeds.
So the line from the home get elbowed up. What happens to the line from the street?
The line from the street remains in place.
They just cap it then?
Yeah, we mark the meter box. We paint the road, so we try to avoid, the contractors going in that area. We also flag out where the line's coming to the meter box and the whole territory to try to avoid that area being disturbed. If we cut it all the way back to the main, it's just going to take us that much longer to restore service when the customer's ready to get it. So we're trying to make things as efficient and effective as possible.
Okay. So when someone wants to demo, they apply for the demo permit, and then they'll be told about this.
Yes, when they apply for the demo permit, they'll be told they have to cut and cap their sewer as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll cut their water line and their sewer. They'll do the same thing, again, just preventing any sewage that's in the main system from leaking onto the person's property during demos, preventing, a contractor that's unaware of a line from hitting it, and all of those types of things. So during their permitting process, they'll be notified that they need to cut and cap their services prior to demo.
Do they need to also call before you dig line as well, or does the plumber do that?
That's more on the plumber's end of things,
Okay.
but they are doing that as well, on most properties.
Okay.
So, and then the utilities department is being contacted from the permitting department saying, hey, we just got a demo permit. Can you do an inspection on this to make sure that it was cut and capped?
Okay.
If it's not being done, then we're following up with the customers ourselves.
Excellent.
So getting into, the call volume and the history, that's one of my biggest concerns that I'm trying to address down here. A very good department that we have. I have a strong team, the team that's left with me, and we're rebuilding the team as we go. We went from 4 people answering phone calls to 2. So that's quite a bit of phone calls for 2 ladies in the office to handle. We're really encouraging people to use the email. If you don't need immediate service today, you don't need a new connection, or you have an emergency and you need your water cut off, or something needs to be repaired or replaced. Those types of things, if you could send them via email, we're processing them pretty quickly.
And if they send you an email with questions or concerns, what do you need to have contained in the email so you can best help them quickly?
I'm glad you asked that, because a lot of people just send you an email. They don't give you an address. Sometimes the property is listed in somebody else's name. So it's really important that we know the property owner's name, whether you're the owner or the renter, the address, and if you have an account number, provide that. Then give us a short statement of what you're looking for assistance with, and someone will reach out to you.
What are you hearing? What kind of questions or comments? Or complaints
the questions and complaints are that we're getting a lot of questions of how do I connect an RV to my property? Now they've demoed their property, they want to go back and install an RV, or now their property's to a point where they want to.
Let's go. What do they do?
So when they do the RV process, it's very simple. It's no different than installing a new connection for the house. If the customer lived on that property before and that meter is registered in their name, They just have to send us an email or contact the office, and then we can go out there and we'll connect the service line for free. So basically, we typically do not handle the backside of the meter at all. That's usually the customer's responsibility.
I've got some experience in the
Yeah.
utility. Here, the backside of the meter.
So
what
what
do you mean by that? That's a trade term.
Yeah, it's a trade term. The water comes into the meter and it flows out the backside of the meter. It's only a one-way directional flow on the meter. So typically, any utilities in the area would say, hey, if you have a leak past the back of the meter, that's on the customer to fix. With the RVs, we understand the situation. We're trying to accommodate as much as we can with people. So we're doing kind of similar to what I said with the cut and cap. We're bringing a 90 up off the back of the meter. We're bringing about 2-3 feet of PVC out of the ground. And then it's the customer's responsibility to attach a hose bib or whatever they need to get the water from that service to their RV or back to their house. Okay. If it's a house and it's a permanent connection, then they need to have a plumber come out and run in the ground PVC. If it's a temporary connection for an RV, they're allowed to run above ground lines for it.
One of the questions I see as a member of the council that I get through the people reaching out to me, just constituents, is there questions about their billing.
Yeah.
And this is even more prevalent after the storm, but you still see it. There's obviously people are getting bills for water that seem outrageous. Sometimes there's a leak. Sometimes there's no building left, and they're still getting a bill, and they don't realize that's a stormwater fee.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about some of these challenges.
Yeah, so there's definitely a few different situations there, which you kind of brought up, and one of the biggest things is I have no property left. My house was destroyed, but I still own and possess the land in my name. If a property is in your name according to LIPA still, we have to bill minimum base fees and stormwater. So what we're trying to do for the customers is we're encouraging them to suspend their accounts if they're not using water for extended periods of time. Extended period of time is at least 60 to 90 days. We are extremely short-staffed with our service techs and our people in the office. I've hired additional staff for both of them this past week to try to help out with that. But we don't want to have our service techs go out there and shut off someone's water and 10, 15 days later, they want to have their service restored. So if you're willing to suspend your account for an extended period of time, what will happen is we'll go out there, we'll shut off your water to your house, we'll lock the meter so it cannot be turned back on. And then by us suspending your account, we know that there'll be no leaks, we know that there'll be no high water consumption. And so we're able to kind of prorate the fees. So then what we do is the only thing we charge for is stormwater. We remove the capital reserve fee, we remove the base water fee and the base sewer fee. We can only do that if the account is completely suspended. You can email us for that. You can contact the office for that via phone, however works best for you. But if you notify us that you would like to suspend your account because you're not going to be staying on the property, I highly encourage that. That's the easiest way to slow down the utilities bill that's coming in.
That's helpful. And just so folks have a sense of this, and many folks do, the stormwater fee a few years back, before I was on the council, but maybe, 5-8 years back, the town of Fort Myers Beach established a stormwater fee, and it's based upon the surface area of your property. So everybody contributes, because obviously when the water hits, it's got to run off somewhere. We try to direct it back into the bay through a very elaborate system. And then the system's gotten much better over the last few years, and we're still working on it. We'll get to that in a minute. But so everybody contributes to the maintenance of that system through their stormwater fee. Even if nobody's there, you still have service area that's contributing to the runoff. Is that a fair summation of what we're at?
That's very fair. And it's, we have multiple homeowners that own multiple properties. And so they get confused of, why am I charged $35 on stormwater on one property and $70 on another property? Mm-hmm. And like you said, everybody's contributing to the runoff and to the permeable surface of the stormwater system. So if you have a large house and it takes up 3/4 of your property, you have less permeable surface that the ground can absorb stormwater. If you have a small 1-bedroom, 1-bath cottage that's 500 square feet, you have a lot more permeable surface and your stormwater fees will be lower. So that's really where the two come hand in hand. I've had a lot of calls since I've been here of people asking me that exact question. I own 2 properties, they're similar square footages, but I get charged 2 different stormwaters. Well, maybe the one property has shell or rock for a driveway and the other property has concrete or blacktop for a driveway. So, we're evaluating the whole size of the property, the pool, the driveway, the housing structure, what prevents water from permeating into the surface.
Right. So it's not just the size of the property, it's how much blockage there is
Exactly.
that prevents the water from draining naturally into the ground, and hence the term permeable.
Yeah, it creates the unpercolation of the water. So the water has nowhere to go, and then it goes onto the property next door. So that's kind of where the stormwater fees come in.
What about the folks that have a leak in their pipe and they're just getting these crazy water bills through no fault of anybody? It's just this the way the system. It seems like the town has, when they come out and they do an analysis, they see a real leak and it's based on the storm. They've been very forgiving in those situations. Is that still the case?
Yes, that is still the case. And I'll tell you, I've had a lot of experience in meters. I was part of Lee County when they went through the whole AMR meter, which is basically the automated meters that we use here at the town of Fort Myers Beach. We are on the 15th and the 16th and 18th series of these meters. So they have been around now for about 15 years. They're very reliable, very good products. The cool thing about the meters that we have, as soon as somebody reports a leak to me, I'm having one of our techs go by, they drive by, they download the reads off of that meter, and it gives them a 90-day history. It gives them a daily history, an hourly history. It also does leak detection, high usage reports, all of that stuff.
And they can do this, the techs can do this without even getting out of the truck.
Absolutely, yeah. They literally just have to drive by the address, pull up their iPad, type in the account number, and they populate this information.
Were we using the automated meters right after the storm? Were we actually reading them? It seems like we were reading the meters by hand the old-fashioned way for a while.
Yeah, they have been implementing them over the past few years. On the entire island, there's about 6,900 meters or so. And out of those 6,900 meters, about 6,600 of them are automatic. So there's only around 270 that are left that need to still be replaced.
And when we say automatic, they still have to drive by. In other words, they are driving by and they're electronically, the data be transmitted. In other words, we're not doing any estimated billing, correct?
Yeah, no, we're not doing any estimated billing. So they're Bluetooth devices, so they do pick up wirelessly, but they don't have a range, that's a large range. You have to go up and down every street and pick up the reads. The only time that we're estimating is when we're having billing issues with certain accounts, and we're trying to eliminate that by bringing in some new software to help us kind of optimize what's going on. The meter reading software is from about 2004. And that also populates a billing software that's very out of date. So we're trying to simplify those two things to make it more user-friendly, but also to prevent us from having to do things like bill estimates. I know after the storm, a lot of customers were complaining that they got high usages because of estimated bills, and they used their last 12 months history because that was all they had to go off of at that time. We're no longer doing that. We are still issuing credits. On credits, we're only going back 90 days. If you're calling us about a credit that goes all the way back to the storm or all the way back to October or November, we're not going to be able to credit that far back or that much back. We do have a threshold of a limit. As you said, we purchase our water. So we pay a price for our water, so we can only discount it so much for the customer. So we do have a threshold of what we can refund to each customer. And that's part of the reason that we're only allowed to go back 90 days or so as far as billing adjustments go.
What else are you hearing in terms of inquiries when people come to the trailer? What are you hearing from people?
We're getting a lot of people that, they couldn't get a hold of anybody for a while. So they had auto payment set up and they've got new credit cards or they've changed addresses. So a lot of people just want to change their account information. Maybe they had a renter on the account and they want to get their renter's name off of it. So I'm seeing a lot of people changing addresses, changing, who the owner of the property is, and just trying to change their billing information in general. The billing portal online is very good to process a credit card payment. It does charge the 3.5% fee, but I also want to let the customers know that if you call the office and you give the girls a credit card over the phone, that also adds a 3.5% fee. So I encourage people to really utilize the online portal. That way we can free up the phone lines for the important utilities.
So the fee has been a point of contention over the last couple of years. So if you choose to pay via check, there's obviously no fee.
Yep.
If they withdraw, do you have the ability to withdraw from your bank account?
Yeah, and I would like to touch on that as well, because a lot of people think, hey, I can put a credit card or a debit card on file and withdraw from my bank account. if you're going to withdraw from your bank account, I highly encourage you to use a check. Because when you set up the automatic bill payments, if it's set up with a credit or debit card, it'll still charge you that 3.5% fee.
When you say use a check, you mean use your checking account
use
number.
your checking account, bring us a voided check so we can set up auto pay for you.
And there's no fee for that.
And there's no fee for that. It's the simplest, easy way. You make sure your bill gets paid and you don't have to worry about the process.
So the only fee comes in is when you use a credit card.
Yes.
And a debit card or just a credit card?
Credit or debit card, and no matter how you do it. If you use the auto pay, you pay over the phone, you pay through the billing portal. I think originally a lot of people were trying to come down here and make their payments. And that's why, I like to encourage people to use the portal. If you are going to pay with a credit or debit card, you're still going to be paid you're still going to be charged that same fee. So if you can utilize the portal, I would definitely do that.
That's helpful, Steve. So just another thing that I think people find curious is how there's no meter on my sewer. How do they figure out my sewer? Well, your sewer is based upon how much water you use. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair to say. If you're doing something extravagant, like you just had a new pool filled and you're going to fill the pool one time, you can notify us ahead of time and we won't charge you the sewer fees on it.
Really?
So we give you a discount for that once a year because it's not something you're putting back into the ground. But yeah, the sewer fee goes straight off the water meter.
So I never heard that. So if you if you're going to fill your pool for the first time or do something really out of the normal with your water, you could contact the town and they'll waive those, or they'll at least reapportion the percentage of your sewer fee based upon your water usage.
Based upon the water that you use for that project, they will credit you the sewer fee of it. It's a once a year credit. So, we have a lot of people that, refill their pool when they get down here or something like that, but we can only credit it once a year.
I never heard that.
Yeah, and most surrounding utilities do a very similar thing because, at the end of the day, that water is not going into the sewer system. The water that goes into the sewer system is to help maintain and operate the wastewater facilities that process it.
No, it makes sense. It's a nice service. Any other complaints or questions that you're getting that you want to touch on at this point?
We have the demo checks, which I kind of touched on, are important. If you see people that aren't doing them, make my staff aware of it, make the town aware of it, because in the end of the day, it's affecting all of us. We have a lot of contractors in the area doing debris removal or just site cleanups, all different types of stuff. And so we're having a lot of line disturbances and boil water notices because of these breaks. And that's kind of something we'll get into.
So if there's some demo going on that's not permitted, it could affect the water to the whole street.
Yeah, we've had, some of the concrete removal on Estero Boulevard, we've had concrete piled on top of fire hydrants. Mm-hmm. And then when the hazard debris company comes to pick up the concrete, they pick up the fire hydrant and they break the water main. Yeah. So, these are very large pieces of equipment that they're using. They can rip a water line out fairly easy, which is why we ask people to follow those permitting rules and regulations that are in place. All of the boil water notices that have happened since I have been here have been due to disturbances from surrounding contractors, surrounding demolition companies, and nothing intentional. It's just they're unaware of the area and they're unaware of where these lines are located.
Yeah, very good. So one of the big Herculean tasks before you is we had a relatively new and very efficient stormwater system before the hurricane, and people that have been around for a while, they remember how the streets used to, after a good rain, would pool up, and it made traffic extremely backed up because people couldn't get through intersections. And most of that was remedied prior to Hurricane Ian through a whole new project in combination with the Lee County and the town, and really had a great stormwater system that was really building out. And then, of course, Ian hit, and as I understand it, it really just filled with sand and muck.
Yeah, the stormwater system was effective. In the event of the storm, it did what it was supposed to do. It took on a lot of storm surge, but the streets quickly drained after the portions of the stormwater system that were clogged started flowing some. At the end of the day, though, the system took some damage from the storm. We've never seen the amount of sand, dirt, and debris. All of our stormwater drains are the lowest lying parts on your street. So that's where everything just naturally wanted to settle. So, initially we went out there, we utilized utilities and public works guys, and we cleaned off all the storm drains just to try to get some water going through them. Now we've hired EarthView to do a clean out of the entire stormwater system for the town. It's a very big project, and it's going to take a couple of months to get completed.
How far along are they?
They haven't given me exact numbers right now.
Ballpark.
Yeah, I would say they're somewhere in the 20 to 25% range. Really, they have only had about 3 full working weeks since the storm. We've really just got them up and running within the past month.
Are they focusing first on the areas that are most likely to flood when the rainy season comes?
So I keep getting, it's a great question. I keep getting it from a lot of residents. So the first priority is cleaning all the in-ground outfalls, all the boxes and pass-through boxes.
Let's define some of these terms.
Yeah, so we have concrete boxes that have the metal grates on top of them. The large 48 by 48 inch grate, you might have one in your street, you might have one in your driveway. You also have on the side of a sterile boulevard, the openings on the curbs that drain into the stormwater system. At the ends of a lot of the canals, we have duckbills, which is basically a rubber diffuser that's attached to the end of a 24 or 36 inch pipe, a large pipe here. And that keeps the tidal water from coming back into the stormwater system and affecting it. It allows water to drain into the back bay, but it doesn't allow the back bay water to come back onto a sterile boulevard. So you have all of these boxes and you have drainage pipes that pass the water from one box to the other. The thing that we're noticing most is those drainage pipes are completely clogged. They were compacted with wet, hard sand. The sand's dried out and it's nearly impossible to get it out. So we're using VACCON trucks to wet the sand down, jet out the lines, and then we're going back and we're vectoring out the lines so they're clean.
So they go in, they wet them down, and they push them through a power washer.
Yeah, so it's like a reverse power washer. It has a head of a jet that pushes, and the water pushes in reverse to propel the head of the jet through the debris. And so then it starts blowing the loose debris back out, and as it's blowing it back out the pipe, it's being sucked up with a giant vacuum truck.
And then I think they're dumping some of it behind Town Hall temporarily till it's hauled away. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I mean, it varies how much water it has in it. What we're seeing is a full Vector truck is about 30-40% water. So now we have to make sure we dispose of that water the right way. The easiest way to do that is to let it percolate back into the soil, and then when we're done with the cleanup site, we can remediate and remove everything from the cleanup site. It's been working very effective because now these trucks don't have to go off island or anything to dump. They're able to dump here right at Town Hall and get back to work. So it's keeping the process flowing.
Of the stuff they're vacuuming out, what percent of it is sand? Is it? I assume it's high.
95%.
Oh, it is 95%?
Yeah. I mean, if you go over and you look over at the sand pile, there's some small pieces of wood, a couple bottles of soda and stuff like that, but nothing crazy. There's a lot less debris than I would even expect to see there. It's mainly sand and mainly the nasty water that was trapped inside of the drainage system.
And the hope is to get all that cleaned up by what, a couple more months?
So our hope is over the next month and a half to get that process cleaned. And then, the next thing is we have a lot of customers that are like, hey, when are our swales going to get cleaned? Which the swale is that little ditch in your front yard. If you don't have a drainage system on your street and you have a little ditch and maybe under your driveway you have a concrete pipe so the water can flow past your street, that's our next priority with the stormwater process. We have to make sure that the main roads and the whole in-ground drainage system is free and clear, because a lot of those swales tie into the drainage system. So if we clear them out first and clean them up, we're just going to be pushing more dirt back into our drainage.
So the town is going to come out and clean out these swales at some point?
We're evaluating that and how we're going to do that right now. We don't have a plan or a start date and process, but it's something that we're going to have to do for our stormwater system.
Okay. The town council, just the other day, we had Steve Johnson, who's the chair of the Marine and Environment Resource Task Force. They call it MRF. He testified, gave us an update on behalf of the MRF advisory committee. We've got all these advisory committees that really do great work and help the town council on a litany of issues. And they made a recommendation to investigate the magnitude of the problem of sewer leaks contributing to pollution of our local waterways. They're saying that they're hearing a lot of during reconstruction efforts, multiple residents have reported holes in cast iron waste pipes, as well as hurricane damaged modern PVC pipes. And of course, if that sewer is just draining into the front yard or the backyard, it's obviously leaching into the water system untreated, and that creates obviously pollution issues for our quality of water.
Absolutely.
And their ask was, obviously the county owns the infrastructure, and they oversee it. But the ask was, could we work with the county and get the county in to inspect and make sure there aren't any challenges, have them just kind of do a thorough inspection of the island to see if this is a challenge. Is this something you're familiar with?
Yeah, it's something that I'm familiar with. I mean, we're seeing a similar thing on our water as well, with our water service lines. You had some erosion that happened under certain properties. Now that's kind of settling out, and you have a pipe that's under the property, and now it has no support under the pipe. So we start putting sewage through it or water through it again, and the weight ends up breaking the pipe because of the age or because of the damage it suffered previous to that. Myself and Jason Freeman, our public works director, we've been working with the county to try to see the resiliency of their system. What's their what has been replaced, how old are the pipes in place, and what is their future plans for it. So it's something we're currently working with Lee County. We do bill for the sewer, but all of the Lee County sewer lines, all of the sewer lines and lift stations on the town of Fort Myers Beach belong to Lee County, and they're doing a good job maintaining that stuff. I think their main priority right now is getting all those lift stations up and running first, and then they'll be going back and addressing what's going on with the sewer
What percentage of the pipe in our water system and our sewer system is PVC versus cast iron? Ballpark.
Yeah, it's all hard to say. You know, in our distribution system, it's mainly ductile iron pipe, which is new regulated pipe, and then it's poly lines going to the customers' houses. So most of that is pretty up to date. The main roads and the main stretches have all been replaced for water and sewer. It's the side streets, it's the connections to the lift station, it's some of that stuff that varies in age. So there could be some PVC there could be some iron, you know, it's those types of things. The water system has been fairly upgraded over the years. So majority of customers have the regular water main, and they have a poly line, which is basically a flexible PVC line going to their water meter.
Excellent. So over since Hurricane Ian, we've had a number, not as many as you might expect, really, of boil orders where the town does this alert that you should boil your water. Something's happened to the water, or they're suspected of happened to the water. You need to boil it. And I'll have a couple questions. Number one, what's the general cause of the boil order? And then I want to talk a little bit about what is it. One of the things I don't think we do a great job of communicating is, what does it mean when we have a boil order?
What's the actual
consent? Yeah, can you take a shower? Yeah. Can you just not drink? But let's start with what causes these boil orders, particularly post-Ian.
Yeah, so if we're talking about a water line that supplies more than just your house or more than just one property, I'm not talking about a small water leak in the front of your property. I'm talking about when you have a 6-inch or a 12-inch line that's under your roadway that breaks, or that's on the side of an easement that breaks. Anytime a water main is exposed in the ground, which means it's broken, it's cracked, it's leaking, to the point that any chance of debris or bacteria could fall into it, you got to protect your customers. And so that's where the boil water notice comes in place. We're trying to rectify that situation by addressing as many of these leaks as quickly as possible, and by trying to make sure that our mains are in good condition as well. So really, it's a precaution, and that's what it comes out as, a precautionary boil water notice. The water is safe, but we don't want to say, hey, it's safe to drink, because it could have got potential contaminants. It could have got debris or soil inside of it. It could have had workers' hands inside of it, maybe PVC glue. So there's a lot of variations to why we do a boil water notice. So in the state of Florida, the standard practice is, if you have an exposed pipe that was damaged like that, whether it was, preventative maintenance or something that happened accidentally by a contractor, you have to do a 2-day boil water notice. And that involves us grabbing some bacteriological samples, hiring a lab to test them, so it's coming from a third party, and saying, yes, this water is safe to drink for our public. During a boil water notice, what you should be concerned about, you should make sure that you're boiling the water before you eat or drink it. That's the main thing. It's safe to shower in, it's safe to give your kids a bath in. You can use your water outside as you please. But the main concern is consumption there. We're just asking, out of precaution, try not to consume it for a couple of days while we're working on the project.
That's great counsel. And I would encourage you to work with our PIO to sort of put some of the additional language in there, so people, now there may be a situation where it's much more severe than that.
Yeah.
But a precautionary boil order is what we've had.
Yeah.
And that's where you could still shower.
Yeah, absolutely. And it will always come out if it's more serious than that, as if this is a mandatory boil water notice.
So that's the difference. One's a precautionary,
and the other is a mandatory.
So if you see mandatory, be a little more careful.
Yes, I would definitely be a little more concerned. I can't say what it would be. There's many things that can trigger a mandatory boil water notice, But a precautionary is every boil water notice that we've seen here in the past few months. That's what's been happening.
And there hasn't been all that many considering what we went through, quite honestly.
Yeah,
The system's held up pretty well.
And we're noticing that we have waves of it, just like anything.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get a little settling and we'll have one neighborhood that'll have a couple breaks over 2 weeks. And then we won't see anything for a little bit of time, and then it'll be on a different area of the island.
How do you target communication if it's just a neighborhood and not the whole island?
Customers are really good. When people see water on the ground, they're really good at reporting that. I always highly encourage customers to report that. If you think water or sewer is touching the ground, try to get in contact with our office, try to get in contact with me. And I encourage people to use the code red, which I'm sure everybody's aware of on the island by now. And if you're not, it's a way to easily be notified of any, emergencies in the area. And they also send out every boil water notice on code red.
What's the code red? Talk about it.
So code red is an app that we use. It sends out, state emergencies, local emergencies. And basically we can use that as the town to notify the public of something that is severe. It doesn't necessarily have to be an emergency, but we utilize that code red for boil water notices. So anybody that signed up and registered for that, even if you're at work or you're not on the island, you will get a notification, especially if your property address is affected. And so it'll let you know, hey, there's a boil water notice. This is the expected period of time for the boil water notice to last. And then it'll also go out on code red when the boil water.
And this is a public app?
It's a public app. You can download it through the town's website.
Is it a state agency or a federal agency?
It's a federal company that operates it. They don't require that utilities use it, but a lot of utilities, the smaller utilities, especially like us,
and there's no charge to download the app or to utilize?
No, there's no charge to download the app. It's not in the app store, so you do have to go on the town's website. They got a QR code you can scan on the town's website and download the app.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to put it out there to the public, because immediately everybody on the island is going to get that notification through that service.
So if you have a precautionary notice and it's just in a neighborhood, how do you, aside from the code red, how do you notify just that neighborhood without kind of shutting the whole island?
So the cool thing about code red is it allows us to kind of use Google Earth, and we can circle a street or two streets and just implement a boil water notice on a certain area. So when you assign your address or your property address inside the app when you're setting it up, if you're affected, you'll be notified. If you're not affected, you won't be notified.
What about the folks in that neighborhood that wouldn't have the code red app? How would they be notified?
So they're notified. We put signs on every street when we do a boil water notice. We also try to tag every door.
What do you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes you get when we have a larger area, then we'll put signs at the beginning and the end of the island to try to let everybody know. We also have to notify all the news stations around, so it's publicly broadcasted on the news. And the banner at the top of the town website will always say boil water notice if it's in effect.
Okay, very good. Is there anything that we haven't touched on in terms of issues or information you want to get out to the public? Because it's such a great forum to get out information.
It's a great format. I really appreciate you giving me your time today, Jim. I think some of the things I wanted to touch on is people setting up new accounts. What do they need to bring with them? People finally show up here, they get some time to talk to us and get their new account set up. Make sure you're prepared to make a deposit. So typically our deposits start at $165, depending on if you have another property on the island or not. Be prepared to make a deposit and have.
Is it like a security deposit?
It's a security deposit if they haven't set up an account or anything. Okay. We got to put a water meter there. It's basically a deposit on the water.
And do they get that back when they close out the account?
When they close out the account permanently, they will be refunded that deposit.
Okay.
It's very typical, LCE, CFPL, they all do the same types of deposit on their meters and their equipment. It's to protect the equipment in case something happens to it. So we asked you to bring your driver's license too. A lot of people down here know each other, so they want to use that, but we need that documentation. We have to have on file that we got a copy of your driver's license, we got a copy of the deposit. And most new services we're able to start the same day. So it's if you have your information together, it's a great source. I also want to put out there that we've kind of changed the utilities page on the website over the past couple days. Some of the things that me and you discussed today are on there for frequently asked questions for people to reference. I've put my town phone number on there, along with Roxanne, my customer service and billing manager. I put her phone number on there and our email addresses. I'm addressing concerns as quickly as I get them.
Do you want to give any of that out right now? Do you have it on your sheet?
Yeah, we'll post it on the video. My email is smatuska, it's smatuska @fmb.gov. Feel free to send me your emails with correct questions and concerns. and we're trying to address this stuff as quickly
When
as we
should
can.
they contact you versus, is it Roxanne?
Yeah, either way. If you're having a billing issue or a concern, send me and Roxanne an email. We'll both look it over. We'll both get it addressed. I'm trying to help the ladies out in the office as much as I can. We just hired another customer service person this week. We're bringing in some temp people next week to help us out with the call volume. So we're trying to get the calls flowing. I understand people's frustration. They want to be able to get a hold of somebody. And so I'm trying to make myself as available as I can to everybody.
So, but in a perfect world, in terms of getting your issue addressed, you prefer email.
Yeah, if it's a billing issue, if it's something that prefers service today, like a new connection, a leak, an emergency, calling us is really the best way. But if it's a billing issue and you can put your name, address, list your issues, then it makes it really easy for us to look up your account, justify what's going on, and even send you some supporting documentation, sending you the meter data along with it, like we talked about. I know when I've been responding to customers, I've been kind of explaining the last 90 days, but I've also been attaching 90 days of usage history. So they can look hand in hand at what I'm working with. And then when it comes down to things like if we are going to issue a credit or something, it makes it easier for us to reach out to the customer versus them having to fight the call volume to get a hold of us.
And if somebody happens to come by the temporary town hall, they drive in, the guards will help them park.
Yep.
They ask for what, the utility division?
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Feel free to come down to town hall. We're more than willing to help you face to face.
But what do they say to the guards?
So all they need to do is pull up to the security guards, tell them they'd like to speak to somebody in the utilities department, and they'll walk them back to our mobile office, and we'll get the situation.
And like you say, if they physically come in, you want certain
still bring your driver's
all your stuff.
Bring your driver's license,
copies of your bill.
If you have a copy of your bill, it helps out. If not, we'll pull it up for you.
Okay.
But really, if we just have your name, address, and account number, that makes our job a lot easier.
Excellent. Now, Steve, you came to us 5 weeks ago, and where did you come from? What's your background?
I came from Lee County. I worked for Lee County Utilities for 11 years, and I really have a wide variety of background with the county, which is why I feel like I'm good in this role. I started out with the county 11 years ago just as a meter reader. So I worked my way up in the meter department. After about a year and a half, I went into plant operations. And so I worked at the Corkscrew Water Treatment Plant, which is Lee County's largest water treatment facility. They're one of the two plants that supply the water to the town of Fort Myers Beach. So I have a really elaborate history. I got about 8-9 years of knowledge of Fort Myers Beach's utilities, system, and operations from the other side of things. So it's a different perspective to bring to the town.
But I think when you and I talked the other day, you told me you actually have an operator's license.
Yes. So I have a Class A operator's license, and my last 4 years with the county, I managed that facility for them. I
just have to say, as somebody who's been in the utility business on and off over the years, to have a manager at a small town like this with an operator's license, it's a pretty big deal for the town. It's pretty unusual.
Absolutely.
That's a great expertise for the town to have.
It's great, and it's really why I wanted to be a part of this, because I have a little bit of experience in each of the avenues, and we have a really small department here. When you're talking utilities companies, you're usually talking 70 to 100 employees. So for me to have a staff of 8-9 people, but it's really good, but I'm familiar with every role that everybody does that works under me. So I look forward to it, and it's definitely given me a different perspective as a manager because I have the treatment experience and the treatment knowledge. I know what's put into the water, so I want to make sure the customers at the end of the day are receiving the same quality water at the most affordable price they can.
I can't help but ask this because you've got such a great background. So the water people are drinking on Fort Myers Beach, it doesn't come from reservoirs. It literally comes from wells.
Yep.
That are in the Fort Myers area?
Yes. So the plant that I operate is out by RSW Airport. We had 54 production wells. 32 of them deep wells.
Are they all in the same well field?
They are in the same well field. They're pretty spread out, but they're in a good protected 50 acres. And each one of the Lee County facilities has their own wells. Now, I worked at a very large plant, so we did have 50 wells. Most of the other Lee County facilities have 10 to 15 wells.
How deep are these wells going to get the water?
It depends on the deeper you go, the worse quality you get out of it.
The worse quality?
Yeah. And
how does that work?
You get more salt content in it, so then you get things that are harder to remove, and they cost more time and energy to remove them, and it increases production costs. So usually the deeper you go down, the closer you get to like a brackish water or more of a salt water, which makes it harder to treat. A lot of the water that we're treating is mainly fresh water, it's easy to remove the salt from the process.
And is that all that is it pretty fresh? Is it pretty clean that when it comes out of the well, or does it just have to be other things have to be done to treat it?
Due to rules and regulations, there's a lot of other things that need to go into the treatment process.
But does nature filter it to some effect?
Some effect.
extent?
Yeah. The aquifers do have some effect filtering it. Really, what gives you your different treatment is that variety of wells. Like I said, 54 wells. We're running about 16 to 18 of them at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives you quite a bit of different combinations, which can really change up your treatment chemistry.
So what's in terms of the industry, and you know this business, how is the quality of the water in the Fort Myers area or the Southwest Florida area? Is it considered great? Is it considered good? I mean, how does it rank around the country?
Working for Lee County and working for the town of Fort Myers Beach, I'm very proud of the water that we get to sell our customers. 3 years ago, our water won best tasting in the state of Florida and went on to a national competition.
Did it really?
Where it held on pretty well. My water plant that I worked at last year won most outstanding water plant from American Water Works Association. Very high quality water. A lot of time and attention goes into it. We have 5 facilities at Lee County that are manned 24 hours a day, and it's something to be proud of. It is a good quality water. And people definitely notice it when they come down here. They say something about it.
So I hate to ask you this, but so do people need to filter their water down here?
It's all up to the person. You know, some people are used to different types of treatment. Here on the beach, we have chloramines, which doesn't really bring out that chlorine taste in the water as much. Where other surrounding cities use free chlorine, which we're about to do for the month of May when we have our free flush. And the free chlorine really has a lot more taste to it because it has a stronger.
Wait a minute, we're having a free flush in May. What does that mean?
So every year it happens in May. And so basically we use chloramines for our disinfection. It's a combination of anhydrous ammonia.
It's like flushing out the system?
Yeah. And so our disinfection is made up of 2 things, not just chlorine. Anhydrous ammonia combined with sodium hypochlorite, and it gives you chloramines. It's a little weaker disinfectant, but it has a longer shelf life. And so because the county has over 260 miles of distribution pipes, they have to have that long-lasting disinfectant residual in their system. Where like City of Cape Coral, they have a plant on the north side of town and a plant on the south side of town. So they feed free chlorine because they turn their water over a lot quicker. It doesn't need as much shelf life. Now, every utility in the state of Florida that feeds chloramines is required to do a free burn once a year. And what it is we put a stabilizer in our pipe, as you were talking about, like corrosion, deterioration, and those types of things inside our distribution system. We protect our customers from that by putting a stabilizer inside of it. That stabilizer kind of forms a thin membrane on the inside of the distribution pipe.
This is what happened to Flint, Michigan. Some of the challenges.
Absolutely. This is the product they were not putting in their system.
Yes, right.
So we put this product in our system and it coats the inside of the distribution pipe. Well, over time, it starts to restrict the size of the pipe. So at least once a year, you need to burn off that coating. And the only way to do that is to feed free chlorine. So for the month of May, they used to do it in June, but 2 years ago, the county switched and all the surrounding counties do the same time as well. So during the month of May, for 21 days, they will switch the treatment process from chloramines to free chlorine.
Excellent. Very good. Well, Steve, you are a wealth of knowledge. The town is fortunate to have you. Welcome to our island. And thank you for your service. And again, to our friends who are watching, if you find this helpful or interesting and you want to share it on your Facebook page, we sure would appreciate it. But thanks again for being with us with key questions for key staffers. My name is Jim Atterholt. And again, thanks for being with us. God bless.